This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the show. There's kind of this interesting development, wasn't there, through the most recent federal election in Canada. We talked a lot about polling. We talked a lot about what Canadians were looking for from their candidates. We talked a lot about the so-called election issues, or those ballot box questions. And one of the things that we couldn't help but note was climate change dropping further and further and further down that list of what Canadians were telling pollsters, what they were telling candidates at the door was their top priority. Surpassing that, the affordability crisis in Canada, the housing crunch that Canadians are experiencing. Those have lived here in Canada for quite some time, those that are new Canadians looking to forge a new life in this country. And of course, top of that list was Canada dealing with Donald Trump, trying to get a trade deal solidified, trying to keep those tariffs at bay. But what does that mean for Canada's climate future? What does it mean for climate policy in Canada? Just a few days before we're putting this episode out, Prime Minister Mark Carney rolled out a slate of measures that the government says are meant to shield Canadian workers and industries from the economic gut punch of President Trump's new tariffs. Now, on paper, it's about protecting jobs, but in practice, critics say that it's opening the door to dismantling Canada's climate regulations and ducking hard questions about whether Canada will ever meet those Paris targets, the ones where 2030 is circled on the calendar. And I guess that's the real tension here. How do we in Canada measure competitiveness by how well the country matches Washington's short-term policy swings, those that oftentimes appear to be made on a whim without a moment's notice? Or how well does this government prepare Canadians for the global markets of the future? While Trump is doubling down on fossil fuels, while Alberta's government is bullish on the future of oil and gas, most of the world is scaling up renewables and electrification at breakneck speed. Meantime, Canadians coming off yet another brutal summer of wildfires, and if there ever was a time to double down on climate action, it feels like now. So why might Ottawa be hedging? What does this mean for Canadian workers that are caught in the middle? And can this government, this federal government, credibly continue to claim to still be a climate leader on the world stage? Caroline Brouillette is Executive Director of Climate Action Network Canada. Her organization represents a couple of hundred different groups across the country, everybody from environmentalists to unions, grassroots, health, and youth organizations. She's joining us this morning in our feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West to talk about what's really at stake in Canada's so-called climate competitiveness strategy. Caroline, welcome back to the show. We're grateful that you're able to join us this morning. What do you think? Is Mark Carney going soft on Canada's climate commitments?
Thanks so much for having me, Ryan. I was actually listening to what Prime Minister Carney was saying, and I think the first thing is we don't know yet what this government's climate strategy is. 4 months in, they haven't presented it. They said they are giving us a couple indications with the policies that they are rolling back. And the Prime Minister was saying that the government continues to be committed to the moral imperative of fighting climate change, but at the same time had to address the commercial and trade imperative. And what I find confusing here is that these things should go together because, as you were saying in your intro comments, in 2025, competitiveness means adapting, transforming, and ensuring that our industries, our workers, and all Canadians are ready to thrive in a global economy that, despite what our neighbors down south are doing, is rapidly changing. Just as an example, I was reading just before this that 1 in 4 cars sold globally in the past years are electric vehicles. So by dismantling the climate policies or pushing them back that we've had in place for the past couple of years, whether we're talking about consumer-facing carbon pricing, whether we're talking about the zero emissions vehicle mandate that Prime Minister Carney announced on Friday, would have its compliance period postponed with a review period as well. We're giving some uncertainty to companies, and Prime Minister Carney is sending the message that climate policies are what is making us less competitive, while the message should be the exact opposite, unless we are trying to appease and cave to the MAGA-backed companies who are behind what we're seeing the U.S. do right now.
Interesting. Bringing up the EV mandate, this federal government pausing the EV mandate. Obviously, that's been one of the bigger stories over the past couple of weeks. I'm not sure if you saw this report by Emily Chung on CBC News. People can read it at cbc.ca. It suggests that pausing that EV sales mandate might not be bad for the climate. They say that this review that the government's undertaking, to be clear, Carney has not killed the EV mandate, but they're saying that this review could result in policy tweaks to bring cheaper EVs to Canada. In other words, they might be more accessible, more readily available to the average consumer. Do you buy it? Where was your head at when you saw that this government was pressing pause on that EV mandate that had made a lot of news through the campaign?
Oh, a couple things. So first thing, this review is an opportunity to address a very big question right now, which is why are Canadians not able to access a cheap, accessible, and high quality made in Canada electric vehicle? That's the big question. And there's an opportunity here to invest in across the supply chain in an industrial strategy that makes sure that our workers are well equipped to deliver those vehicles that Canadians overwhelmingly indicate wanting access to. EVs actually reduce costs of car ownership by 20%. So in this moment where we're really feeling a cost of living crisis, these are important savings. So that's the first thing. I think the thing, though, that is a little bit concerning is without having seen the full picture of Prime Minister Carney and his team's climate plan, we're seeing a lot of pausing and in some cases backtracking of policy. There are questions raised around, key policies like the oil and gas emissions cap, which we haven't heard any news on recently. And so this uncertainty is really leading us to ask the question, how will Mark Carney tackle climate competitiveness? Will he look globally and beyond our neighbors down south and take this opportunity to make our economy and transform it so that it's resilient in the long term and in a really future-oriented way? Or will he want to again, pit economy and climate, which we have seen some politicians do in the past, but I think would be extremely disappointing from someone as climate literate as Mark Carney.
Yeah, I feel like we've had countless discussions on this show about that intersection, as we describe it, between the environment and the economy. And I can't, think of how many credible people, many credible people have suggested that it doesn't have to be a choice between one or the other. An intuitive comment here, I think, from Kazman, who's watching us live and chiming in on our Real Talk live chat powered by Park Power, says, I've been really looking forward to the discussion on the episode today. Kazman says, I believe that Mark Carney can be three things at once: a pragmatist, an environmentalist, and an economist. Pragmatist as in he needs to course correct the ship. Do you agree with Kazman? Can Carney be those three different things all at once as a global leader?
I totally agree with Kazman, and I think that the Prime Minister should seize this opportunity to paint us a bold vision of the Canadian economy, not a middle of the road one where we are trying to appease those interests that are still, causing wildfires across the country and polluting the air that we breathe, as we saw this summer with still another really devastating season of wildfires. But really, I think he is well placed to help Canadians understand these opportunities and once again tell us that being competitive in 2025 and in this moment where the global economy is transforming is about orienting our industries to those markets that are really increasing globally, but also at the same time reducing our emissions. So the moral imperative and the commercial imperative in this case align really closely. And I would be really disappointed to see Prime Minister Carney continue with a message of those things actually going against each other.
Carney built his reputation, and you alluded to it, as a central banker who, embraced climate risk, or at least prominently acknowledged it as an economic risk, right? Climate risk equals economic risk. Do you think that the government's current approach, at least as of today when we're talking, undermines that legacy?
Well, let me tell you a small anecdote here because I studied economics as well. I'm an economist, and I remember when I was actually studying how groundbreaking Prime Minister Carney's speech, who was then central governor of the UK central bank, it was called the tragedy of the horizons, and how, as you say, markets were currently really poorly factoring in and quantifying climate risk and transition risk, and that putting our economies at risk. And so, if anyone in the world is well placed to know how the Canadian economy, including our financial sector, is at risk of overexposure into the oil and gas sector, but also in terms of, the very real economic consequences that climate impacts are having right here and right now, not in a couple years, it is Prime Minister Carney. And so it is deeply confusing to watch these actions recently. And I'm looking forward to see the clarity in this climate competitiveness strategy. But again, would be incredibly disappointed to see that we are, sending a message that climate policy is what is putting our economy at risk, right? Because the people who are trying to make this argument are actually the fossil fuel industry, who, by the way, are backed by the same financial interests that are currently behind, the MAGA coalition in the Trump administration. The investors in these projects, including in Canada, are part of this coalition. And so in a moment where Canadians are so staunchly defending their sovereignty in the face of aggression from the Trump administration, I think there's a really important way we can do this in, diversifying away from commodities and fuels that not only right now profit those who are burning down our communities and our democracy, but would make us more resilient in the long term because the sun and the wind cannot be controlled by some unpredictable leaders.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear you invoke that essentially the elbows up campaign, right, in your plea for Canadians' attention to this. And there's no doubt that there has been kind of a collective unifying effect of Donald Trump's tariffs and some of his comments about Canada, though we haven't heard them in recent memory, at least not in the past couple of months. The 51st state business, the talk about Canadian natural resources, that imaginary line, the Canada-U.S. border. Do you think that patriotism or that a commitment to Canadian sovereignty would actually move the needle on folks' commitment or folks' position on Canada's climate policy? I mean, we're talking to you, as you know, from the province of Alberta, where many people are discussing Alberta's future within Canada. And a big part of that is how they feel that Alberta's been treated by Ottawa, most particularly when it comes to environmental regulations, when it comes to what a couple of premiers have called industry-killing climate policies. How do you think that all works together?
I would say a couple things. So the first one is that one thing that Canadians care deeply about is our natural environment. And so I think, and we've seen some ways in which how, that there's a feeling of pride against our natural environment that can be catalyzed positively in our environmental efforts. And, we've seen, for instance, Minister Guilbeault, who is now at Heritage, make many comments in that way. I think that I'm concerned to see politicians echo the talking points of the oil and gas industry in a way that makes me wonder whether they are speaking on behalf of their citizens or on behalf of a very handful of elites and CEOs within oil and gas corporations, who are the ones, again, who have been pushing for this agenda for climate deregulation, for undoing a lot of progress regarding the respect and upholding of Indigenous rights and sovereignty, which in Canada is absolutely fundamental. And once again, these Indigenous communities and nations are the ones who have been at the front lines of climate impacts, but also climate action. And so I think that we really need, as Canadians, to make sure that we don't lose the plot here and cave to Trump's agenda. We are seeing President Trump trying to bully the world into going back to the technologies of the past, those technologies that are focused on oil and gas, while the world and a majority of countries are scaling up renewable energy deployment and the adoption of electric-based technology. And so I think as Canadians, sometimes we can be very focused on what's going on in North America, and for a very valid reason. And again, our economy is deeply tied to the US, and we have an opportunity here to undo those ties, but to do it strategically in a way that doesn't only look at the crisis we're faced with right now, but orients us to the future and ensures that Canadians thrive for the long term. And that's the pitch that I want to see Prime Minister Carney make. And there is no one better place than him to educate Canadians and ensure that we understand what those linkages are between economy and climate protection. However, when I hear things like or uncertainty around meeting our 2030 and 2035 targets, we are sending the exact opposite message that we should be sending right now. And that just empowers those interests that are not only behind the burning of communities, the polluted air that we see, I'm talking about fossil fuel interests, but are also deeply involved in the weakening of democracy that we are seeing down south and that we so not want to see happen here in Canada.
Caroline Brouillette, our guest in our feature interview presented by Mercedes-Benz Edmonton West. She's the executive director of Climate Action Network Canada. Caroline, what are the consequences of Canada missing? Let me phrase it. Were Canada to miss its Paris targets, what do you think would be the real world consequences, either reputationally, climate-wise, or otherwise?
Well, first of all, let me just take a bit of a step back in terms of how we set those targets, right? Because Canada is a party to the Paris Agreement, which means that every 5 years or so, we have to submit new targets to the world, basically. But those targets are set here at home, and we have a pretty robust process of consultation, notably with Indigenous nations, but also provinces and territories and the public at large, as well as industry, to make sure that these targets are the right ones for us. And, there's a whole economic modeling that goes into it. So it's a very serious exercise. Myself at Climate Action Network Canada, as well as our members, would argue that actually our current targets are too weak from a science and equity perspective, but that's another part of the conversation. And so, these targets are not imposed on us from the UN, just to be very clear. So it is very confusing and disappointing to hear ministers shed a lot of uncertainty and questions around whether we are still committed to those. I think Canada internationally has played, particularly in the most recent years, a helpful role in climate negotiations to bridge between countries within the G7 and the global majority, the rest of the world, countries that are, typically referred to as from the global south. And so, first of all, there is a reputational impact of us stepping back if we do so. That is non-negligible. But again, the main impact will be felt at home economically because we will be completely missing the opportunity here to transform our economy and ensure that we're ready and we're making our industries, our citizens, our workers, all of us ready to thrive in a world economy that is rapidly changing and shifting towards renewable energy and electricity-based technology. So in this case, honestly, we would be hurting ourselves more than others because if we don't have interim targets to our longer term net zero by 2050 strategy, which is yes about reducing emissions, but also as we've been discussing about transforming our economy through industrial strategy in the long term. These things take time to happen. Investments and changing supply chains, that takes time. Companies and sectors, they need certainty. And my colleague Alex was joking yesterday that she once tried to run a half marathon with zero preparation, right? And so it's a little bit like this here. We are setting ourselves some checkpoints along the path to net zero by 2050 to make sure that we're bending this emissions curve progressively and giving time to the economy to transform progressively. Without those targets, we might be like my colleague Alex, who gets to the race the night before and feels very, very, very badly. And we're talking economically here, and I'm not mentioning the very real physical impacts of climate change, right? That if, Canada starts stepping back, then, we're part of a global community, and other countries doing so would be very disastrous because we're seeing right now every single tenth of a degree matters.
We're seeing some interesting, really interesting feedback and people kind of getting real about their own reality, their family's own bottom line, their own personal priorities in our live chat here, powered by Park Power. Randy says, Carney is exactly what I thought he would become, a conservative wrapped in a red cloak. Randy says, I voted Liberal to keep Pierre Poilievre out of the Prime Minister's office, but I knew I would need to push Carney on climate change. Melissa says, while I supported the Liberals, I don't want to sacrifice the environment in the name of the economy. Lorna says, I'm happy I voted Carney. I sure as hell would never put the NDP into the federal government or Poilievre's Conservatives. Erica says climate change will continue to fall as a priority as long as people are struggling day to day. Erica says it's like worrying about the efficiency of your windows while your house is on fire. What would you say to the average, like when it comes to your group's top priorities, or what you'd specifically like to see from this government when it comes to climate change, climate action, climate policy in Canada? What would it look like, and how would you get the average Canadian, including those that are struggling day to day to pay their bills, how do you get the average Canadian on board?
There are a couple of questions in there. So first answer is that, again, we're seeing an overlap in the opportunities, right? And the reason folks like me are fighting climate change is not because of these abstract GHG emissions curves and models is because we think that not only climate change has an impact on our lives that is devastating, and we want to protect us collectively against that, but because we think climate action actually has a huge amount of positive benefits that will help make our lives better. One of them is making things more affordable. So I don't think Canadians are aware enough, and we have a role to play in that, and politicians as well, that a huge share of the cost of living crisis that we've been feeling over the past years is actually driven by fossil fuel cost increases, right? Because those are entrants into so many of the products that Canadians consume. And so, we were talking about electric vehicles earlier. There are immense cost savings that can happen there. Same when it comes to home heating and cooling, which is increasingly important. Heat pumps can help us reduce our costs first and foremost, and become more efficient from a housing perspective. But right now we're talking about, choices that folks can make in their daily lives, while, let's be real, a third of Canada's emissions, and those are growing, are from the oil and gas sector. And so we really need to have an honest conversation as a nation about what it means to continue to, make sacrifices in other sectors and feel like we are, moving ahead across the economy, while this sector doesn't do its fair share of what should be a team effort across the board. So right now, in a context where we're talking about major nation building projects, what our network and members are really focused on is ensuring that we put our eggs and pick a lane within the energy sector into, again, the sector that is most aligned with us thriving socially, economically, and environmentally in the long term. And so we think that investing in a pan-Canadian electricity grid is a really worthwhile project that would help hire Canadian workers in unionized jobs. It would help decrease energy costs for folks at home. It would support the second largest builders of renewable energy across the country, which are Indigenous nations. And so all in all, a great nation building project that is aligned with Canadian values. And so that's what we are hoping that we'll see this government prioritize, rather than double down on the technologies of the past that President Trump is trying to have us stay distracted with.
Caroline Brouillette is Executive Director of Climate Action Network Canada. You can read more about what they're doing, connect with their work at climateactionnetwork.ca. Caroline, thank you so much for your availability. We appreciate your advocacy.
Thanks so much for having me, Ryan. Hope to see you soon.
Yeah, you bet. Absolutely. Real Talkers, we're going to jump into our live chat here to get more of your comments. She dropped a lot on us there, and some obviously very valid points, but I'm curious to know where you land on this when it comes to political priorities, when it comes to the bullishness of the future of employment, the future of industry, the relationship between Canada and the United States. You can always leave a comment on our YouTube episode if you're catching this later. Leave a comment on Spotify, or, of course, our inbox is always open at talk@ryanjesperson.com.
Edmonton is here because the river is here. So we care for it, protect it, share it. The water of the North Saskatchewan sustains all of us. It's a big job to treat and deliver it, river to tap, to over 1 million people. So you can have and enjoy a glass of the Sask. On tap, made local by Epcor.
All right, if what Caroline said resonated with you, and if your family is looking for ways to go green, it's not too late to get solar up on your roof This season, before the snow flies, our friends at Solar by Kuby right now are offering free solar quotes online. You can check out their website at kuby.ca. Of course, our friends at Kuby proudly presenting Positive Reflections, the first episode of every week. They're all about making our communities better. And here's the deal. All this talk about saving money, or all this talk about that financial crunch that so many, like millions of Canadian families are experiencing. Can you imagine opening up your power bill and not flinching? I mean, that's what solar can do. By producing your own power, you can save, depending on what time of year it is, between 20 to 50% on your electricity costs. And most systems are paying for themselves in 5 to 10 years. Plus, they've got net metering, which means you can earn credits for the extra power that your system produces in the summer and then use that to cut your winter bills. If that's something that you'd like to explore, you can check out kuby.ca. That's kuby.ca/solar for a free quote and more information. Kuby is solar simplified and people powered. We want to give a huge shout out to our friends at the Edmonton Chamber of Commerce. Congratulations. They've just posted this on their Instagram. Make sure you give them a follow at Edmonton Chamber. Coming up later this week on the 12th of September, that's this Friday, they're going to be hosting the biggest event outside of Real Talk, of the municipal election season. That's the Chamber's 2025 mayoral debate. And of course, it's a sold-out event. There's going to be Edmontonians packing that room at the JW Marriott Edmonton Ice District, listening to hear which candidate's policy most resonates with them. The Edmonton Chamber is always advocating for business, and this could be a membership at the Chamber, your business's most valuable investment. I know that we're very proud to be Edmonton Chamber members ourselves. Strengthen your business, support our community. Sign up for membership today at edmontonchamber.com. Our friends at North Road Investment Council have spent this summer meeting with their clients, discerning Edmonton families that have built successful businesses, and now they want to make sure that the same approach is taken with their career and retirement goals. That's what North Road does, a steady hand and a studied voice guiding you through wealth and investing. If you're working in an analytical or detail-driven profession, you're going to fit right in at North Road. That's the typical client there. Engineers, architects, dentists with at least $2 million in investable assets that are looking for the recognition, guidance around the fact that life's financial journey doesn't always follow a straight path. If this sounds like you, the team at North Road is wide open to a conversation. You can visit their website today. That's northroadic.com and start a conversation built on clarity, discipline, and true alignment. How about that? A story from Caroline, her colleague, talked about running a half marathon without any prep. Producer of this show, Johnny Infamous. I don't know if you've ever found yourself in a situation like this. This was about 15 years ago. My wife and I, both working in television and radio at the time, were asked to come support a fun run, they called it. It was supposed to be
why
a
they always
fun
call them
run.
fun?
Well, I think it's
not
fun.
that fun for most
like Caroline said, for people that train, I think it is fun. But I'll never forget, there was the choice. There was like the 5K. I think it was maybe a 2 or a 5K. It was like the family fun run. And then they had the 10K, and then they had the half marathon. And I thought, well, realistically, and this was weeks out, weeks of advance notice. I said, I don't know that I'm prepared to do the half. I don't want to die in front of people. Cardiac arrest publicly would be a tough look. So I said, well, we ought to be able to bang out the 10K. And then in the weeks to follow,
It sounds so easy.
Carrie would say to me,
Let
she'd
just-
say
let me
like,
just get this. Let me just
well, and
bang
she
this
was
out.
always working out anyway. So I know that she was feeling perfectly fine about this, but she was like, what's your plan? She said, we should go running together. We should go training together. And I was like, yeah. And you know how it goes. It's always tomorrow.
Yeah.
And I found myself on race day, on fun run day, sorry. I was letting everybody else go in front of me at the start thing. You know, they start the fastest runners first and then everybody else in the back. And I'll tell you, I had 2 goals there, finish alive and finish under 1 hour. And I'm proud to say we do have a commemorative photo of us crossing the line in 59:40.
Wow.
Managed to make it happen,
go.
but I just about died. And so that was 10. I realized if we would have signed up for the half marathon, I would have only been halfway done and already ready to clap. up. So her anecdote, her metaphor resonated with me. It brought me back.
Well, congratulations. I never knew you ran a marathon before.
No, not a marathon, 10K.
Yeah, I did. Hey, that's a marathon to me, buddy. And I'll give you
Felt
it as
like
well.
one.
I've only done one 10K in my life. It was for charity as well when I was working in broadcasting with Kiss 91.7. And same thing. Like all these words they use, like motivation and positive energy and fun run. I'm like, none of this and rock climbing are the two things I just never want to do again in my life. And I think that's okay. Like I'll get back into the gym again. And, I like getting on the treadmill or going for a little hike. But these extended... Ryan, these 10K, 50K, these like I saw these people. There was a big one downtown. What was it, last weekend or the weekend before? A big Edmonton marathon.
It's very impressive.
Yeah, and you really figure out, you get to see all your friends who are hardcore if you haven't already seen them, because a lot of people, not to rag on them, but a lot of people who run marathons like is constantly posting about health, which is great. It's motivation for us who need that. But, the other ones who, like, you may have not have known, some of your friends are, oh, holy crap, this person ran this marathon? And it kind of makes you think, like, should I get out there and
we
do
sort
it?
of think if they can do it, we can do it.
Exactly. And you get motivated, and you're like, the next one. And then the next day after, I'm like, I come back to my senses and say, no, I'm not going to. No. I don't have to do this to feel whole. But more power to those people that do it, and it's amazing when I see them do it.
I'm searching for the date here. I'm wondering if we should, I don't know if I'm just a glutton for punishment or what I'm doing. I don't know why I'm doing this. Well, I'm just searching because you referenced the Edmonton Marathon. That's the Service Edmonton Marathon. You're right. It was it was August 17th. Yeah. So coming up, on a few weeks ago kind of thing. And I'm just checking for the 2026 dates. Now, I feel like a marathon is I'm thinking like shin splints, plantar fasciitis. Yeah. I'd have to lose like 40 pounds.
Nipple covers.
The nipples. The
chafing, right?
The nipple chafing might be the worst part of all of it. You see all the pictures of like everybody, and they've got their medals and they've got their arms raised at the finish line, and then there's just these two blood spots on their white shirts. Number one, we'd have to run in black shirts.
If I'm going to put Vaseline on my nipples, it's going to be for sexual enhancement, not for running.
I think we found our clip for today. Do you think that... We did literally just find our clip for today. Hey, do you think we could run a half together? We could run it together next summer?
What's a half?
20, what is it? 42 is a 20? This would be like 21K.
Yeah. Like I've done a 10. I was a little younger when I did it. That was like 20. This is like 10 years ago. Yeah. Probably 9-10 years ago. But I think I could do 20 and not die. Yeah.
Especially if we had a year advance notice, we would have like 10 and a half months to kind of like think
year.
About training, and then we'd have like 6 weeks. We could go see our friends at whatever gym or whatever running club and just say, here's the deal. Mm-hmm. We have 6 weeks and we need to get prepped and ready. It's like these actors that can lose 40 pounds for a role.
You can do it, and you can do it pretty quick. Like a couple of months, you just eat right. And
how hard can it be?
Drink water or whatever. But it's funny because when I did this marathon like 10 years ago, like I think I was partying like the night before, and then I went out and like ran 10K, and it was like nothing, right? And nowadays I'm like, okay, I need to first of all mentally months before this I have to prepare.
That's the thing.
And then physically you also have to prepare a bit.
Yeah, interesting comments from Caroline Brouillette. I've not heard. Someone plainly and specifically just lay out the sovereignty argument when it comes to climate policy.
Yeah.
And I don't on one hand, I see where she's going with that. And I know that they advocate this group. And it's like 200, it's a collective, this Climate Action Network, obviously operate in earnest and like fighting to save the planet, basically. So you understand where they're coming from. And they'll leave no stone unturned. They'll leave no argument untouched. I'm not just realistic. I'm not poo-pooing what she says. She knows way more about this than I do. But like, I just don't know that the average Canadian would have like the sovereignty thing, the elbows up thing resonate when it comes to sort of standing in the face of where the United States is going on oil and gas policy, impacting Canada's energy future.
No.
I don't know.
I saw the correlation, like the line she was trying to draw on. But I do see that line where like when you think of MAGA and Trump, you think of like bringing back plastic straws,
drill.
rolling back all these protections of the environment. Yeah. So I get what she was trying to get at.
Yeah, for sure. Ytream in our live chat, powered by Park Power, says the EV mandate was going to be reached without the government, basically stating it publicly. Says Ytream, and I'll take you at your word on the numbers. I haven't fact checked them, but Ytream says 18% of all auto sales last year were EVs. I don't know if that number's in Canada or not. I'd be surprised if that's true.
Yeah.
Really? 1 in 5?
It's
Whitestrom goes on just real quick to say this year 20% is more than achievable nationally. So 1 in 5.
Is that worldwide or Canada?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it's a comment here. I'd be curious to know. Like maybe you do the Googling. See if we can get a number.
We did the China numbers the other week, but
what?
It says world data here. Over 1 in 5 new cars sold globally were electric in 2024.
Okay, but that's going to be obviously okay. Here we have it in Canada, and I want to cite my source here as well. There's an EV sales data tracker that you can check out at electricalautonomy.ca. That's kind of a cool website. In Canada, zero emission vehicles. Have you seen this? They call them ZEVs.
Yeah.
Or why don't they call them ZVs or something?
ZVs.
Cool. That's probably what they call them.
Zoomvies.
I like this. They accounted for, they say 13.7%. Let's call it 14% of new light-duty vehicle sales. That was July of 2024. When they're saying light-duty vehicle sales, they're not talking about trucks in the oil patch. They're not talking about farms and ranches. But get this, Johnny, 14% of new light-duty vehicle sales, ZVs, in July of last summer, up from 9% of 2022, with an overall market share of 12% for the full year of 2023. So interesting, more than 1 in 10.
Okay, so I'm also looking at data from the International Council on Clean Transport that has been, confirmed by the World Economic Forum. Ooh, buzzword. And Our World in Data. So 3 different websites all saying that the most reliable estimate is that EVs made up around 20% of all new car sales, around 22% actually, globally in 2024. So that's, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, this is Aaron Wary, who does a great job reporting nationally for the CBC, has an interesting piece out. This was published September 6th, so a few days ago. Wonders, is the zero emission vehicle mandate dead? Or is it merely sleeping? Goes on to suggest a lot now riding on Carney's climate competitiveness strategy. Suggests this announcement on Friday that we're talking about with Caroline there. This is a few days ago, that implementation of the federal government's zero-emission vehicle mandate will be delayed by at least a year. Writes Wary, can be read as another retreat on climate policy from the new prime minister. Of note to those that are saying it's Trudeau 2.0, that's kind of an interesting point. Says it can also be read, writes Aaron, as a small victory for conservative leader Pierre Poilievre, who'd been calling on the government to abandon the policy. Poilievre telling reporters on Parliament Hill, quote, today, Carney has flip-flopped. He finally admitted that the Conservatives were right. He didn't say that, but he admitted the Conservatives were right, just like we were right on the carbon tax, says Poilievre, who's not wrong, by the way. How annoying for Pierre Poilievre that Mark Carney's basically stealing his most popular proposals, implementing them into policy, right? But the Conservative leader lamented it was a, quote, clumsy retreat because Carney has only promised to delay the mandate. Mark Carney can't even get his flip-flops right, said Pierre Poilievre. In fact, Carney says, can we say ZEV? That's what we're going to say now. The Zoomies sales mandate will be subject to a 60-day review. This is kind of like what Danielle Smith's doing with the library books, by the way. Yeah. Subject to a 60-day review, and so it's not now clear whether the mandate, obviously a major policy meant to drive down greenhouse gas emissions from transportation, is actually dead or merely sleeping.
Well, I wonder how intoxicated this morning our chat is now that we've said all the buzzwords in 30 seconds.
You managed to fit into
Trudeau
World
2.0,
Economic Forum.
World Economic Forum. Whenever you hear one of those today, take a drink.
Yeah, I think so. you know who gets bragging rights on this?
Oh,
I guess.
Yeah, who was on our show?
Is our buddy Raheem Mohammed. Remember him, the National Post columnist that joined us on August 19th.
Great
just before The Strategist. But yeah, number one, great mustache. Joining us right before The Strategist. I thought that was a wildly entertaining episode of the show. This was the morning after the Battle River Crowfoot by-election. So Raheem was on to talk about, Pierre Poilievre, getting back into the House of Commons, officially able to swear in as the leader of the official opposition, and we kind of go on from there. But he made the call that he figured that EV mandate was like the number one thing that Poilievre was going to hammer Carney on. He basically called it carbon tax 2.0 policy-wise. So Carney kind of getting ahead of this one, but obviously it's ruffled some feathers, including with Caroline Brouillette and the group at Climate Action Network Canada. The reason we reached out to her, besides the obvious, to get her take on this, is that they've been doing advocacy. News releases are going out. They're really trying to ring the bell, get Canadians' attention, saying we know that Trump and tariffs is number one on your radar. We know that everybody's pressuring the Prime Minister to get a deal done here, but the question has to be at what cost? And does the average Canadian recognize, what that cost ultimately could be?
And do you think Poilievre is, since the election, he's got a little bit of ground to make up for? So these little things, like you said, add to his net positive coming back. I did want to show some abacus data today because we're talking about the Prime Minister, and so there's we were talking about whether Canadians are agreeing with everything Carney's been doing. The elbows are down. So his government approval there, you can see abacus from February to now. Positives up. Negatives also up a little, but it's way down from where it used to be.
Okay.
And then we'll look at just what Canadians' impression of Carney is. The positive net favorable is up plus 13.
Okay, so hang on a second. So that was January 9th.
To today, basically last week.
So on January 9th, right around the time that everything was kind of going sideways for the Liberal, and he enters the mix. This is for the benefit of everybody listening to us on the podcast. Shout out to our podcast audience. 19% of those polled, this is again abacus data, 19% polled had a favorable view of Mark Carney. That was up 2 weeks later to 33%. It reached that high watermark of 51%. On right around the 5th of June, and right now, as of the 2nd of September, sitting around 45%. His net negatives, about 14% saw him or perceived him negatively. That's like an active position they're taking. So these aren't the sort of the lukewarm kind of middle of the road perspectives. 14% of those polled on the 9th of January saw him as a net negative. Right around the time, this would have been April 27th, so right around the time of that federal election, 34% saw him as a net negative, which probably represent right around how that election turned out with the strong votes for Poilievre's Conservatives, and now currently at 32%. So a net favorable, 32% negative, 45% positive for a net favorable of a plus
that's
13.
Huge. Plus 13 is huge.
That's pretty good.
So here's a wide view of Pierre when rumblings he was going to run for Prime Minister way back in June 2023 started to today. And he's, it hasn't changed much, but, -2. So he does, that's what I was saying. He has a small little window that he has to kind of climb back up and through since the election. I don't know if winning, Battle River Crowfoot did anything for him, but I do think these little things, like you just mentioned, finding these things that he can kind of step on a soapbox about, like the EV mandate, can help him. And then I just want to throw this up before we get out of the abacus stuff. Here's obviously the top issues facing Canada. Oh, surprise, surprise. The top 5 are cost of living, economy, Donald Trump, healthcare, and housing and affordability. And then I thought this was neat to look at, which party could take it on best. So here's the data here, and it's kind of split on, if you look at the top 10 things, or what is this, top 12 or 13 things Canadians are thinking about, it's pretty much 6 and 6. Some people think the Liberals are better to take on things like, climate change, like we were just talking about, in the environment, the threat by China and Russia. But then when it comes to things like crime and public safety, it's overwhelming that they think Conservatives would do better.
Look at that. That's not even close.
60%.
If you just leave that up. So 60% of those polled believe that the Conservatives would do the best job on crime and public safety. I mean, obviously, Conservatives spend a lot of time talking about that. Chinese election interference, nearly 60% believe that the Conservatives would do the best on that file. Look at that. Only 1 in 5, 22% believe the Liberals would be effective on that file. That's not very encouraging.
But then you go to Trump and it's like, Liberals.
Overwhelmingly Liberals, or at least a majority position at 55%. Only 1 in 5, about 22% of Canadians, 23 rather, believe that the Conservatives would be best served to manage Donald Trump and his administration. I'm using these words. And just some insight into the audience, like what happens between my ears. When we're talking about Donald Trump, I never know what word to use. It's not dealing with, I guess it is dealing. You're trying to I always say managing Donald Trump. You're not going to manage Donald Trump. Negotiating with Donald Trump, I guess that's probably the word, but sometimes it doesn't really feel like much of a negotiation.
Is the word.
You know what we should do?
Sparring with Trump.
Yeah, sparring. What we should probably do is get the Prime Minister in here.
Oh, you know what? what, Ryan?
Why don't we get the Prime Minister
How about we do
in
it tomorrow?
in our Real Talk studio in the
let's get him in
historic
tomorrow.
Mercer Warehouse in downtown Edmonton and ask him these questions?
Okay.
It seems like a good idea to me. So why don't we just go ahead and do that, Real Talkers? What we'll do is we'll take our top questions and yours as submitted to talk@ryanjesperson.com, and we'll invite the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, to join us here
Tomorrow.
in the Real Talk studio. You want to do it tomorrow?
Let's do it tomorrow.
Why don't should we do it? Maybe live stream the episode at 8:30 Mountain,
Let's do it
10:30
then,
Eastern. Okay, so that's what we'll do. So we'll invite the Prime Minister to sit in here exclusively in the Real Talk studio here, and we'll put these questions in front of him.
Great, yeah.
We'll ask him about the EV mandate. We'll ask him about climate policy.
Perfect.
We'll ask him for an update on negotiations with Donald Trump. I know that Alberta's Premier Danielle Smith is talking about the so-called Carney gun grab. We could ask him about that. Bail reform. I know that an announcement made by this federal government kind of seemed to fly under the radar a little bit because it's probably, like you just laid out in that polling, that Abacus polling, maybe like, not the number one issue with Canadians, but crime and punishment is huge. I can tell you that every single time that we bring it up on the show that another dangerous offender, not technically, someone will call me on that, but let me say a career offender, let me say a dangerous human being is being re-released into the public and commits another crime, or the moment that a tragedy happens, or perhaps a home invasion in Ontario, a father woken out of his sleep by a man with a crossbow, the issue flares up again. And a big priority for Canadians has been bail reform. That's one of the things that successive federal governments have promised, and we want to ask the Prime Minister about that. So we will do exactly that when the Prime Minister joins us exclusively on the 10th of September here in the Real Talk studio.
And I often don't ask questions, but from the back, I'll just be like, as well, how was it skating with the Oilers and getting your legs back out there on the ice again?
Yeah, we probably should ask about that. I wonder if he,
because he's a goalie, right? So it's like, why didn't they have him in net? That was one of the things I was wondering about. Because goalies don't look great skating, and you know what I mean. And they're not quick, and they don't work on that kind of, they just don't develop that area. So I was like, but then again, taking shots, at the Prime Minister with a hockey puck probably isn't safe.
Yeah, that's kind of where my head goes on that. Is that the concern is that you get somebody, you get it. Maybe it's a young player.
Yeah, you get a young,
or maybe
young
it's a veteran player who's always voted conservative.
Oh.
But you get a young player coming in on the wing in the drill, and
wants to make a viral
super
video.
Excited. Wants to make an impression, wants to go top cheddar, and the next thing you know, he rings one off the PM's mask, and then you got a disaster.
And then
he's
in an interview. Listen, it was great skating with the Oilers. His eyes shut and bruised, and
yeah. Matthew says if Carney accepts the invitation,
he's already
he says
accepted.
then good for you. He says extremely well deserved, and I know you'll do it justice. Yeah, we're just messing with you, Matthew. He has accepted the invitation, and we'll look forward to welcoming Canada's Prime Minister. The Real Talk has been in existence through the tenure of 2 Canadian Prime Ministers, and this will mark the appearance of both of them. So that's 2 big boxes ticked off our list.
Hey, Ampias, name another podcast in Alberta
geez,
that's had both Prime Ministers. I got to stick up for the host here, okay? I know Ryan won't do it, but
we're looking forward to that, by the way, as well. For those of you that may have missed it, we didn't plan on pumping our tires here, but let's just know we're looking forward to the Ampias. This is like the Alberta Emmys. That's basically what it is. The Alberta Motion Picture Industries Association.
It's the Grammys for us.
Yeah, Grammys, Emmys, Oscars. It's Alberta Film and Television, and they've just added a new category, Best Podcast. And so I don't believe, unless I'm missing something, no one has ever been awarded. This will be the inaugural Best Podcast handed out by the Ampias.
It's hard not to be excited and not wanting to win that award first here in Alberta and be recognized. So if we aren't, we have brought silly string, and we're going to kind of
we're going to cause a scene. Like those people. What is it? What was the?
This is an outrage.
What was the painting? Was it in the Louvre that someone threw tomato soup?
Oh yeah, the Campbell soup.
Yeah, the Campbell soup. Yeah, we might have to cause a scene.
We are kidding though, because whoever wins this and all the other awards at the Ampias, we look at the winners, and we know they're truly deserving. So it's. And I know people say this all the time, and they think it's a facade, but it's an honor to be nominated. And like I said, the best part of that night is being in the room with those individuals. Some of the best filmmakers, producers, editors, stuntmen, actors, tech, production, everything, and you just you suck in those energy orbs.
It's true.
You get a lot of passion and you get a lot of just ideas, and even if you don't win, you go back to the drawing board right after.
Yeah. No, I know, and I 100% believe with you. I agree with you. You got to. I believe that what you're saying is true. You have to surround yourself by people that are not just equal to you in your craft, but better than you. They want
to make you level up
and study from them, and you want to always. And I think not only does it serve to inspire you, but it creates a hunger. And that's the really good news about me being nominated for Best Host. Is it's my 7th nomination, John, and thankfully I'm so grateful I've lost all 6. And so
because every time you lose,
I just get
makes you want to get better
and hungrier and hungrier, and I have this ravenous hunger now. It's not all about the awards, and we are just grateful to be nominated. And we looked at the categories, and quite frankly, anybody in those categories, what are we? Best reality or lifestyle series, best podcast, best host, and anybody could win those. We're just happy to be there. This is going to be October 25th, and obviously Real Talkers. Yeah. We'll let you know either way. If we win, we'll be here surrounded by hardware, and if we lose, we'll probably throw to a best of episode.
But I looked at all the nominations. There's no throwaway, we nominated this person just because.
No.
It's really hard.
It's
and
true.
It's across the province. It's not just here in Edmonton. It's Calgary. It's everywhere. So it's an honor to be nominated. It's going to be awesome. But also, if we don't win, we get back to the drawing board and look at the month we've got. We've got the Prime Minister in here. We've got the mayoral debate coming up
October 3rd. That's right.
We've got Biff Naked coming into the studio.
I'm so excited about that on the 24th.
We've got an incredible fiscal coming up here.
Yeah, this is Biff Naked. We're really looking for. She's working on a documentary with filmmaker Adam Scorgie. You guys will remember him if you're regular audience members. We sure appreciate if you are. Adam joined us in here with Jordan Tutu, a Canadian hockey legend for many, many reasons. The first Inuk player to ever wear the Maple Leaf in international competition, and an absolute menace on the ice for the Nashville Predators for the most part. Wrapped up his career in Detroit.
Tutu Train.
Yeah, the Tutu Train. They put just a very powerful film together. Scorgie's back with this feature on Biff Naked. So if you're a big Biff Naked fan, don't miss. That'll be the 24th. I think it's a Wednesday, the 24th of September. They're going to join us.
Awesome.
How about this from Sharon?
$10.
Like
that.
Sharon, God, you're so generous. $10 into the YouTube super chat says cheers and beers for the nominations and for getting 2 sitting prime ministers on the show. Sharon, we sure appreciate you.
I gotta get the DJ air horn sample in on the board. So
you remember Sharon joined us when she was at was it what's the UN climate conference? Was it CAP 27 off the top of my head?
No,
she joined us. She was there as
definitely 26.
Was it? She'll tell us and follow up.
I remember
I'm sure,
the thumbnail.
She joined us. She was she was an Indigenous knowledge keeper that was there on official assignment, and she joined us live. I think it was from Dubai, wasn't it, Sharon? Absolutely amazing, and we always remember that. We've got long memories for people that have shown up for this show many, many times. And here's Sharon back in the chat, thrilled that Biff Naked's going to join us. She says she's so amazing.
God, my partner was just like, I'm coming to the studio.
Is that right?
She is I don't know. I mean, you think of Canadian rock icons. You think of Blue Rodeo and Tragically Hip and Katie Lang and all these, Shania Twain. But Biff Naked's in there, especially for people who love punk and rock and a little bit of EDM. She had those big dance numbers too as well. The Much Music generation in the 90s was Biff Naked was every 5th video. So yeah.
Yeah, and a really interesting personal life as well. I remember when I first read about her her straight edge approach to partying and stuff like that, had no idea. So we will peel back the layers, John, on the 24th of September. Want to get into the live chat, and Tony, we appreciate your congratulations. She says, way to go, guys, for all your success. Not bad for a liberal communist podcast. You forgot fascist, socialist, bootlicking. Yeah, Tony, we appreciate that very much.
Beta males.
Oh, beta males. Yeah. All we have to, we just go read through our YouTube comments and we'll get a refresher on everything all the adjectives for the podcast. We've got some amazing emails here that I want to get to. One from Amanda, why she will only vote for an independent candidate in the upcoming mayoral elections, these municipal elections on the 20th of October. Lucy's mom has just found us on YouTube. And I really, really appreciate the note that she passed along as well. And of course, we also want to get to a cool note from Rob, who's listening in from Southern Ontario, says he never misses a show. But first, I have a message directly for our Alberta-based audience or anybody that's going to be visiting Alberta in the next while. Our friends at Friesen Brothers for 70 years have been rolling out traditions that have become a huge part of many families' routines, and that includes ours. I mean, come on, who hasn't gathered the family around the breakfast table for a phenomenal meal, including sourdough cinnamon buns? Or who hasn't gathered your best pals together in the backyard for an incredible Alberta beef barbecue? Friesen Brothers has been making it happen since 1955. They've been helping Alberta communities fill their freezers with quality Alberta beef. It's the Alberta Beef Roundup, and it's continuing. That tradition is this year now is a 60-pound pack of real Alberta beef, expertly cut and wrapped by Friesen Brothers in-store butchers, and it's freezer ready for you. You can find all the details on their website. That's friesen.com, FRESON.com/Alberta Beef Roundup, or just go chat with one of their friendly, skilled butchers in studio. You can order your Alberta Beef Roundup order today for just $6.49 a pound. That is an unbelievable offer. Expertly cut and wrapped by in-store butchers, or of course you can order in-store. 16 different Alberta locations. Friesen Brothers is proudly Alberta grown and Alberta owned. You know what? You could say the exact same thing about our friends at California Closets of Canada. This is a proud family-owned business, owned and operated by a Canadian family. And did you know that every single installation that goes in with the California Closet stamp is manufactured right here in our home province? The California Closets journey starts with a free design consultation, which you can book online today at californiaclosets.ca. You can always pop in and see them in one of their beautiful showrooms as well. Make sure you let them know that Real Talk sent you. They've got custom closets and storage solutions for the entire home, including the entryway and mudroom. How many of you have shoes and boots and sandals and dog leashes and all that other stuff stacked up together right in the front entrance? Wouldn't it be nice to make a great first impression to your visitors with mudroom storage? From winter to spring through summer and fall, the mudroom can provide a sense of organization and accessibility when it's designed and installed by California Closets at californiaclosets.ca. And there's a big day coming up for our friends at UCAN Youth Services. We've been talking to you about how proud we are to partner with them as our charity of choice this year. Well, their grand opening celebration goes tomorrow. If you're listening to this show the day that we're doing it, Wednesday, September 10th, our friends at UCAN Youth Services are opening the doors at their brand new location on 103rd Street and 103rd Avenue, 109th Street in Edmonton, just south of Grant MacEwan University. They're transforming the lives of Edmonton's most vulnerable youth, and this new location is going to allow them to double the number of young people that they can admit into their pre-employment programs. This is really, really incredible. It, of course, is going to come with a capital campaign, and we're going to be talking to you about that through this year. I'd like to invite you, if you're already aware of what UCAN is doing, to consider a donation on their website, ucan.ca. And if you're not 100% familiar with the work that they're doing, helping young people out of harm's way and onto a path of economic independence, check out the link at ucan.ca. They're building hope. You can make a difference today by partnering with UCAN Youth Services.
Oh, I like this comment that we should take a run with Carney. I don't know, man. He looks pretty in shape for a guy his age.
That's a terrible idea.
I think he'd make us look pretty bad.
No,
but
I actually love that somebody suggested that, but I guarantee that, the thing you got to be aware of on these runs, these public runs. Who was it? Dean Blundell posted this yesterday.
Is the nipples?
Aside from the nipples, I promise you this: I will not ask Mark Carney about his nipples.
Okay.
But he did. As Minister Evan Solomon pointed out, remember the Minister for AI, Canada's first artificial intelligence minister, joined us on our most recent episode of the show. That was the 8th of September. If you want to check it out, talking about Canada's AI future and how we're kind of falling behind in the arms race, the AI arms race. But he referenced this run that Mark Carney did, a 26K trail run in Ontario, and Blundell torques it up and politicizes it and takes a shot at Poilievre with it. But here's the photo. Here's the photo of Carney on this 26K trail run. The one thing, the thing you got to be aware of here is that when you go on these public runs and people know you're doing it, if you're a public person, one bad photo will stick with you for the rest of your career. Every single time that they Google you, they're going to see this photo of you wheezing and hacking and coughing and nearly collapsing. And this is why, if I do participate in any sort of a run, I will tell you about it after, not before, because I do not want it memorialized forever on the World Wide Web. I don't know if I could handle it.
That's the worst part of it, isn't it? Like going out there and then having to see the photos after, and they're like, yeah, we took some great photos of you out at that quotation.
You're like, I'm good.
Fun run.
I'm good.
Oh, is it? Because it's up on the website and the gallery on Facebook and also at this.com. And then you go to it. Like, but hey, for people who say like we're always, we never give Pierre his due. Like this is Pierre's workouts too. Like, he does the tire flipping.
Oh, sure.
He's not, because I do know
Who
that
works out with glasses on though.
Well, this was earlier, but he is in good shape as well.
Yeah,
because
sure.
I saw Blundell's post was like Carney was out doing this while Pierre was doing this. Yeah. Pierre works out hard as well. He clearly has gotten in better shape the last 2-3 years.
It sounds to me like you're suggesting perhaps some sort of a boxing match for charity. You could get the Prime Minister, the leader of the official opposition, maybe an arm wrestle,
fun match.
Yeah, you could do something to get the folks together. It's kind of wild when you look back on it. Remember that boxing match with Justin Trudeau and Senator Patrick Brazeau back in the day? What a wild sort of a scenario. Looking back on that now, I don't know that you could ever get. Now, at the time, it was not like the Prime Minister and the Senator, and that wasn't how it was framed. But I think trying to convince like mainstream, globally recognized politicians to box each other. I mean, the optics of getting knocked out, the optics of getting punched right in the mouth, and then they have that photo, like your face over here, and it's just like on the front page of the Globe and Mail. I don't know that anybody would want that.
I'd love to see the president go a couple rounds with someone.
Wow, yeah.
Maybe AOC or Bernie Sanders. Or
Bernie Sanders. What are you trying to make happen here? Trump v. Sanders.
I don't know.
I guarantee it would be probably.
If Trump boxes like he dances, I don't think he's going to fare.
It would be the most. He'd have to have those tiny little boxing gloves.
Oh
though.
Yeah, get tiny.
It would
hands.
be the most watched pay-per-view in global history
ever.
I guarantee it. Dwayne shouting out a province just a couple to the east of us says Biff Naked is originally, says Dwayne, from Manitoba, just like, listen to this list, Burton Cummings, Randy Bachman, the Crash Test Dummies, Tom Cochran, and Chantal Kreviazek. And Dwayne, respectfully, I believe that the Weaker Thans are also from Manitoba. In my mind, one of the most underrated Canadian bands of all time.
Well, yeah, you got to. If you live in Manitoba, you got to become an artist. Not much.
Dwayne
to do,
says
right?
Rush as well. There you go.
The imagination runs wild when it's minus 50 and.
Like, what else are they going to do but play music and watch hockey?
You got to become creative.
I love that people from Edmonton are chirping Winnipeg about their climate. This is going to turn
it's
into our
cold
viral
as F
moment.
here too. We know that.
100%. Hey, on August 21st, we brought. Right now we're not supposed to technically call him an Edmonton councillor, right? Because he's a candidate for re-election. But let's be real. Councillor Aaron Paquette, one of the more popular councillors in the province of Alberta, for that matter, joined us, and I encourage you to check out the full episode. That's the 21st. Of August, and he was talking about basically his plan to save our cities. In particular, he was talking about the plan to save Alberta's capital city, and he pointed out that discrepancy in funding. He talked about how Edmonton has a very significant disadvantage when it comes to paying its bills, when it comes to offering services. Long story short, Edmonton is surrounded by many wonderful bedroom communities who pay property taxes in their own jurisdictions, but then come to work and to recreate in the capital city, whereas Calgary doesn't really have as much of an issue there. About 70% of Edmontonians or people utilizing Edmonton's services are paying property taxes in Edmonton. About 90% of people utilizing services in the city proper of Calgary, are paying property taxes in Calgary. So Calgary's got that real advantage. And Aaron Paquette said there is a way to fix it.
This plan, over time, if done right, will literally reduce taxes. Let's keep that in mind. Second, it will bring excitement and vibrancy to the city. We will actually have a vision of how we grow. If we don't do this, we are going to keep sliding because municipalities are set up to fail. That's the way our system works. Third, the number of working families who will be positively affected by this is astounding. All of that work, all of that investment, we are talking about billions of dollars of investment coming into our economy, means food on the table. It used to be that people would worry about food on the table. Now they're worried if there's going to be a table. If we get this kind of investment, we will have that money in our city, in our system. It will benefit Edmonton and the region, the working family, the seniors who are worried about their fixed incomes. This is literally the only play that we should be focusing on. Anything else is a distraction and should be disregarded because if we don't get this right, nothing else will work.
So we had some really great feedback following that interview with Aaron Paquette. Again, that was the 21st of August. If you want to check it out in our podcast archives, or you can easily find it on our YouTube channel. Shout out, by the way, to everybody that subscribes. We really appreciate it. That's where Lucy's mom found us, John, and she left a comment on that YouTube episode on the 21st of August. I wanted to get to this. She says, I checked this show out. I checked out this episode because I wanted to hear Aaron Paquette's plan from his own mouth. She says, I've never heard of the show. She says, I've never heard of the host. She says, and I have to say, I'm impressed by how reasonable, she says, everybody seemed, presenters and guests. She said, it always strikes me actually how reasonable the vast majority of Canadians are, says Lucy's mom, on both sides of the political divide. She says just that conversation of taxes really touched on it. It being the fact that most of us get it. We get that our taxes pay for our services, and it's not just a bunch of evil politicians that are stealing from us to pay for their first-class fights to the secret evil elites meetings. She says, I also very much appreciate the truth being stated that being a have province in the context of equalization, the haves and the have-nots. She says being a have province can very much be a temporary situation, and contributing the share of a have province is the thing that guarantees that you'll be assisted or helped when it's your turn. She says, anyway, you've got a new audience member here, and I hope to God that Aaron Paquette wins his ward because he is clearly a man with Edmonton's best interests at heart, and he works his ass off. That from Lucy's mom. How fantastic is that?
Great email.
Without attempting to interfere with democracy or to sway your vote in any way, I would suggest that I think that Aaron Paquette, not that he's not going to be knocking on doors, not that he's not going to continue to work his ass off like Lucy's mom said, but I think that he will win re-election in resounding fashion.
Wow.
Respectfully to everybody else that's campaigning against him in his ward. I'm reading the tea leaves here, and this is what they're telling me, and I think that it's well-deserved because he is someone, and Lucy's mom hit the nail on the head. You know, a lot of people will kind of look at Aaron Paquette and they sort of try to figure him out. He's one of those politicians where you go, well, he's not exactly like this, like sort of like wild screaming lefty, and he's definitely not like a wild screaming right winger. And some of the things that he supports or votes for, you know, would qualify as like business friendly or you know, I think that he would eschew this label, but like a small C conservative. And then I think that other things that he would vote for would be absolutely qualify as progressive.
Sure.
So this is how we want our municipal governments by design to work, right? This is sort of what we look for, at least in a nonpartisan or a non-party scenario. People have always appreciated in provinces like Alberta that have not had, up until this year, municipal political parties. People like that, or the idea at least, that their elected city councillor is going to vote for what's best for them, what's best for their ward, regardless of how everybody else is voting or regardless of how a party might vote. And I think that Aaron Paquette's track record is that. Now, that said, Albertans are seeing political parties for the first time this election coming up on October 20th, right?
They're seeing them outright. I mean, we all kind of knew where people's allegiance lie. That's why I think it's kind of ridiculous. Like, we're putting flags or like a sign on people's heads now. It's like you said, like certain people like Aaron Paquette, they're going to get painted wrong. because he leans this way on a certain issue, this way, another way on another issue.
Well, and he's running as an independent, right? He told us. I would recommend people check out the full interview because he talks to us about why he elected not to run for mayor. He said that he was considering it, but he decided against. It's a very personal reason, and I appreciated him sharing. It was actually quite a powerful moment of the show.
But also, he believes he can do more. Better.
He has unfinished business.
Yeah.
Right? Interesting comment from him. Remember, he said to us, and I'll reference something from 2019 in just a second, but he said to us he believes that his political window has closed on running for Edmonton's mayor. I said, would you consider running down the line? He goes, I believe that window may be closed. And I was like, I'm not sure. We debated that after we talked to him. We debated about it in a subsequent episode.
If you had to bet, is it really closed?
Well, I remember, and I've told this story before, so I won't tell it at length, but I remember after working the desk on the national broadcast for the federal election 2019 in Toronto, it was, how's this? It was Farah Nasser who was the host of our talk radio panel, and Donna Friesen would throw to Farah, and then Farah would interview us. And it was me, Danielle Smith, Charles Adler, and Supriya Dwivedi. Like, what a lineup.
Dream team.
It was basically like Real Talk before there was Real Talk. And I've told you that after that broadcast wrapped and we had a few beers and we're taking our cab, it was like a 30-minute cab ride back to our hotel. And in the cab was me, Charles Adler, Danielle Smith, and Brad Wall, the former premier of Saskatchewan. A hilarious cab ride. And you know, we were having some fun and the conversation was very candid. It was like 3 a.m. And I was kind of grinding, at that time, we call her Danielle. I guess I'll call her premier now, but I was grinding Danielle's gears at the time going, come on, like, when are you getting back into politics? This is driving you nuts. This is driving you nuts that you're not in politics right now. And she's laughing and she goes, I'm unelectable. She goes, I'm unelectable. She goes, it's not going to happen. This is the same thing as Paquette. I believe my window is closed.
Yeah.
She goes, I'm unelectable. And Brad Wall is basically like, bullshit. I don't think he said bullshit, but he was like, I don't think so. I was like, I don't know. And she's like, yeah, I just think Albertans and the floor crossing, and it was like challenging. And she took her lumps and she goes, I just don't know if I could get elected again. Well, you fast forward 5 years, time changes. Is a hell of a thing.
It's like when people, they're being self-deprecating. It's like us when we say it's an honor to just be nominated at the Ampiest.
We do mean
we
it.
want to win.
We do
deep down inside. We want to win the award. We want to get up on the pedestal.
But if we don't win, we're going to be totally fine with it.
Totally. I want to throw something in
it.
before you move on. You're talking about betting and whether things will happen. Somebody told me the other day, I don't know if I'm letting a cat out of the bag, if this is a crazy, amazing business proposal, but what would you think of a political betting app?
Oh, jeez.
So you're betting on elections. You're betting on policy that might be passed. You're betting on, like, you could parlay during the election on, whether this MP in a riding and the prime minister. This guy went off to me while we were having a drink, and I was like, Ryan would love this.
I don't know much. Well, no, because I would lose every single time. Right? I mean, the one call that I think, we did call a Carney win in the most recent election. And I believe, and we did an unofficial, unscientific Twitter poll right around that time. And the majority of respondents, and it wasn't like a gross majority, but a majority of respondents had selected a liberal minority win. So Real Talkers got it right on that, a minority government. But generally speaking, I mean, the only ones that seem like slam dunks, I mean, if you're going to talk about betting, they'd have pathetic odds, right? Like, are you going to bet on, like, respectfully to all the other, I think it was 209 candidates aside from Pierre Poilievre and Battle River Crowfoot, but like they wouldn't have even offered odds on a Poilievre win there.
No, but like when you think of something like if we go nationally or, if we go to the States, like Trump Harris, that probably would have been, like a lot of people had Harris winning the election. So that would have been, a bet that maybe, somebody could have won or lost big on. But this person, we were having a drink and they just went off on like, why don't you guys start a political betting app and blah, blah, blah. And I was like,
us? No, I don't think that's a good
the
idea.
hoops we would have to jump through.
Well, and also just the fact that like someone would like nail one of those parlays and bankrupt us in like 5 minutes. So we, again, to bring this back to political parties. So Aaron Paquette's got the plan to save it. And I appreciated the comment from Lucy's mom about the reasonable nature of this and kind of his pragmatic approach. Aaron not running as a member of a political party, but there's at least 3 political parties. I mean, we could even see more. At least 3 political parties down in Calgary. There's at least 2 prominent ones in the capital city of Edmonton. But in a recent conversation that we had with Jeremy Klazis, Jeremy is Johnny. I'm just going to play this right from my laptop if that works for you. Jeremy joined us. He's the founder and the editor at The Sprawl out of Calgary. He joined us on the 5th of September to talk about his coverage of Calgary's mayoral race. The polling down there is really, really tight. It's like neck and neck. There's at least 4 and probably you could argue 5 candidates who have a serious shot at making an impact. At least 3 candidates, and I won't say who, for fear of discriminating against any of the campaigns. Draw your own conclusions, but at least 3 of the candidates have a shot, I think, at being the next mayor of Calgary. And guess what? Political parties aren't really factoring into the mayoral race, at least. Now, they may be making an impact in the different ridings in Calgary, but here's Jeremy talking to us about Albertans. He says, not really sold on municipal political parties.
Even the parties themselves in Calgary are saying that, hey, we're not excited about political parties on the municipal level. And so this is, and this isn't surprising. I mean, when the province did surveys on this to look at, should we introduce municipal political parties, the public response is no, we don't want this. So the province was aware of that. They brought it in anyway, only in Calgary and Edmonton. And so now you have an electorate that is, number one, doesn't kind of know the lay of the land. As you say, they're like, okay, here's these new parties. Who are these people? What are they about? Like, how do I, where do they sit on the political spectrum? How do I kind of make sense of this? And I think that you're also seeing kind of an anti-party sentiment. That's what I'm hearing from candidates and what I'm seeing, both from independent candidates and, like I said, party candidates. Brian Thiessen, who is the mayoral candidate for the Calgary party, he said, I'm not a fan of this. I wasn't excited about this when the province brought it in, but this is the system, and so we're working within it. Sonia Sharp of Communities First said the same thing. So you have even the people who are with the parties are saying, hey, we're not excited about this. The other thing I'm hearing, which is interesting, is party candidates kind of downplaying their party affiliation, not mentioning it in their campaign materials. And so the original thinking about these parties was, if you run with a party, you have a massive advantage because you can raise a certain amount of money, but then the party can also raise that amount of money. So you basically have theoretically double the firepower. But I think what you're seeing is the electorate being like, what's with these parties? Why do we have them? And how does this benefit us exactly? And so I think independents actually have an edge in a way.
Independents have an edge in a way. So says Jeremy Klazis, founder and editor of The Sprawl. I appreciated this email from Amanda into talk@ryanjesperson.com almost immediately following our conversation with Jeremy. Oh, and by the way, if you're listening to that episode with Klazis, that's our September 5th, that's a Friday episode, stick around for our 3 Pinters craft beer real talk roundtable. Just 3 absolute buffoons. I love these guys like family. Fellow teammates of mine on the 3 Pinters Men's League Division 9 basketball team. We had a lot of fun talking about interprovincial trade barriers and red tape and the like. A wildly entertaining episode. So Amanda checked it out, wrote into talk@ryanjesperson.com. She says, I really wanted to respond to your discussion on the show about why independent candidates might have an advantage, like Jeremy said, for these upcoming elections. Amanda says, as many of us know, politics at the family table can get pretty heated with conservatives versus progressives debating and disagreeing. But the one thing that I noticed we can all get behind in these conversations is that politics has become too polarized. And this binary system is absolutely hurting our communities. She says, for me, a candidate choosing to be an independent in and of itself speaks volumes that they recognize the needs of the people. They're choosing to resist the pull of potentially further polarizing our community and recognize that the party system on the municipal level does not invite opportunity for unique and varying platforms to be presented to us citizens. Amanda says, this is why whoever I choose to vote for will be an independent candidate who has their own clear goals, strategies, and proposals for our city that is not tied to a party mission. She says, I want to hear why each candidate is uniquely qualified for their role, what clear action items they propose, and specifically how they think we can address community concerns. I don't care about the parties, says Amanda. I have yet to decide who I'll vote for, but I do look forward to watching upcoming debates, the Edmonton Chamber debate, the Edmonton Public Library debate, the Real Talk debate on October 3rd to hear more from Edmonton's mayoral candidates, and I will continue to read our candidate websites to see exactly what they're offering. She says, thanks for the great coverage on meaningful topics. That from Real Talker Amanda. We appreciate that. We also want to let everybody know that, of course, we are talking to the mayoral candidates in Calgary as well. Jeremy referenced Brian Thiessen and Sonia Sharp. If you're listening to us, a member of our audience, by the way, you guys are encroaching on 50% right now of Real Talk's audience. Shout out to Calgary. Brian Thiessen is tentatively slated to join us. We believe it's going to happen on the 17th of September. And Sonia Sharp will be joining us following Supriya Dwivedi on Monday, the 22nd of September. So you'll be able to get that. We've already heard from Jeff Davison. We've heard from Dr. Jody Gondek, the incumbent. We've heard from Jeremy Farkas. And we'll continue our coverage of Alberta's municipal elections right up until election date on the 20th of October. I don't know, like for a lot of people, and Amanda makes some great points. I will also point out that I don't think that everybody that's signing up either as a candidate with one of these municipal political parties or to volunteer or to donate even for these political parties is doing it like for nefarious purposes or doing it because they don't care about the community. I think a lot of people see it as an opportunity to better organize, to fundraise more effectively, to share election data and research, which is huge when it comes to getting out the vote and actually winning. So I don't think that on that front, I don't think that like a candidate's choice to run in the party system is inherently bad. But I also think that Amanda makes some really compelling points. It's been interesting to see how candidates have approached this. Some of them proudly proclaiming that they are not running as part of a party system. Andrew Knack comes to mind. By the way, you and I are joking about running like marathons and half marathons. Did you see? I think it was just like last week, within the last 10 days or so, his mayorathon. Did you see this? His mayorathon.
It's pretty cool. So I live in Summerside.
Like 40K in the city.
And I didn't tell you, but I saw him.
Oh, did you?
So he started in Summerside Park, and I actually saw them there. They had like a mayoral desk on wheels. It was crazy. And he's pulling up, knocking on doors, and then literally sitting at the desk and answering questions like as if he would when he
and he did the full 42K, I heard.
If and when he becomes mayor. And I just thought it was like this is the kind of stuff I like the kind of like, I mean, it's not all for social media. It's just, it's cool. Bringing the mayor's desk right to your front door and being like, come on in my office, have a meeting.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. Yeah, it is. Like whatever you can do to get people's attention and meet people where they're at, right?
But at the same time, when you say, he's not aligning with a political party, fine. But we all know, like we wouldn't expect Andrew Knack to be a conservative. Like we kind of know where people lie.
It's a very fair, it's a very fair point. And you make such a good point, and I appreciate it because like, you just even like he's not participating in the party system. We should mention all the candidates.
No,
but I will say this. But he's also like at Folk Fest, like standing with every NDP MLA, and like he's got people. You know what I mean? Like it's pretty obvious what's going on. But I don't see him. I don't see him as like a partisan hack. He's not.
No.
He approaches his job in earnest. I mean, he has the inherent disadvantage, which is a hilarious disadvantage, that the first question everybody asks is he too nice to be effective, right? It's like,
I really do believe if he became mayor, if and when he does, he's going to work with everyone. I don't see him shutting the door to talk to anyone.
Nah.
Whereas some other candidates, I'm like, I don't know if this person would, take a call from X or Y.
For sure. Chelsea the Ginge in our live chat, powered by Park Power. Check out parkpower.ca/Real Talk for exclusive savings on internet, electricity, and natural gas. Chelsea says the concern with the ability of parties to raise funds on top of what candidates can raise seriously overestimates the amount of money that's raised in municipal elections. Maybe. But like I will say this, and Chelsea's not wrong. But like, it's been suggested that to win as mayor in a major Canadian city, and in particular, if you look at like the track records of mayors that have won in past, they typically raise between, and there's campaign disclosure, they typically raise between like $500,000 and $1 million, and big campaigns will spend, between $500,000 and $800,000 or what have you. But there have been campaigns that have raised and spent a ton of dough and have lost. Right. So it's not like I think of, and I'm not taking a shot at her, obviously. We're looking forward to having her on the show in the next while. But Karen Leibovicz is an example, someone I can think of. I think Karen's campaign spent, like, off the top of my head, correct me if I'm wrong, Real Talkers, I know you will, but I think they spent like $700,000 on her mayoral campaign. And that was a campaign that Don Iveson won, I would say, handily. So, raising and spending a lot doesn't guarantee a win.
No.
People have been talking a lot about how the Tim Cartmel camp, Better Edmonton party, Cartmel was first out of the gates. You remember he announced his candidacy right here on Real Talk. That was like back in November. We're talking to you now in September. Like the guy's been campaigning for a long time, fundraising for a long time. I wouldn't say that he has some massive lead in the Edmonton mayoral race. Like if anything, this is like a dead heat with at least three of the candidates, all three of whom you'll hear on the 3rd of October here on the show. So good point from Chelsea the Ginge. You can let us know what you think. Of course, if you're live, joining us live on our Real Talk live stream presented by California Closets, you can always check in the live chat. You can leave a comment on our YouTube episode after. I also wanted to get to this. Every once in a while, we'll get an email that just has nothing to do with politics and just basically makes our day. And that was this one from Rob, who sent us an email from Southern Ontario. Rob had ordered some Real Talk swag. You can go to our website, ryanjesperson.com, and you just click on merch, and there you can find it if you want to rep Real Talk in your neck of the woods, in your community. Our snapback hats, we got our t-shirts, we got our Real Talk coffee mugs. Yeah, there's Katie Cook Chivers, our GM. You can also reach out, by the way, if you want, we've never announced this before, Johnny, but if you want a Real Talk vinyl sticker to throw on your laptop or your coffee mug, you just send us an email to talk@ryanjesperson.com. We're not going to sell them to you. We'll just send one to you. Send us an email with your mailing address, and we'll send you a vinyl sticker. So Rob's got those, and he just said, Ryan and Katie, wanted to thank you so much for the amazing swag. He says, I can't wait to rock my new Real Talk gear. He's a Patreon supporter, so he got his Real Talk socks as well. He says, I can't wait for the snow as well so I can rock my Real Talk toque. That was a special edition toque that we had available. He says, I also plan to find a great spot to put that sticker and rep Real Talk in Ontario. He says, maybe on the back of my truck. He says, we've got these wood matches, the Real Talk matches. You get those. Anybody that happens to swing by our Real Talk studio for a visit says they are camper ready, and they're going to be used to start our next campfire. We'll be enjoying s'mores thinking about the show. He says, as a thank you to Real Talk, he says, I wanted you to know that I made a $50 donation to Operation Christmas Child. He says, which is a charity that's been very near and dear to my family and I for many, many years. He says, enjoy the rest of your summer and into the fall. That from Rob in Southern Ontario. How
Thanks,
cool
Rob.
is that?
Yeah,
We appreciate
awesome.
the charitable donation as well. So Rob, we appreciate that. Again, Real Talk is if you're looking to rep the show, you want to show everybody else that you're the smartest person in the room, you can find it at ryanjesperson.com/merch.
Most informed. Let's not go with it.
Yeah, that's right. There is a difference,
Most
isn't
informed, yeah.
Well,
because I wear this stuff, and I'm rarely the smartest
it?
person.
If you're truly the smartest person in the room, you never divulge it.
Oh,
you don't have to say it.
Yeah, you don't need to.
It just evidences itself.
You would not wear a snapback and a t-shirt. You'd get something like a Real Talk tramp stamp, which nobody could see.
Oh, you know what? If somebody does legitimately get a Real Talk tattoo, I think we'd have to do something very special for them.
Probably. They'd probably be sitting in this corner every show.
I think that we should probably put some thought into what we promise, because I know some of you lunatics will go out and get it right away.
Somebody's making an appointment right now.
You get it just on your neck right there. You're not going anywhere. You're never going anywhere. I love it. Tony says she finds Andrew Knack to be more of a centrist than anything. Tony, I think that you're absolutely bang on. The question is, can centrists win elections?
Have you done mushrooms with him? Because
not yet.
He's not.
Not yet.
I'm just kidding.
Where did that come from?
Well, I was at
Johnny's
Folk Fest, and it was incredible.
Did you offer them
music,
to him?
The music
Did you
came
offer
alive.
him? Did you offer
I'm
him?
kidding around. There's going to be a rumor on X.
I don't think he could. I was
Producer of Real Talk did drugs.
offering drugs to a mayoral candidate. What type of lunacy is this? I was talking to somebody the other day, and they said, "Hey, have you ever had Dana Larson on the show?" I said, "Yes, I have." Yeah. He's like Canada's. He's like Mr. Shrooms in Canada, right? He's consistently advocating for and lobbying government to legalize psilocybins and psychedelics,
and being rated.
and we've talked a lot, exactly, right? We've talked a lot on this show about the mental health present and the mental health future, utilizing microdosing and psilocybins, and you can look at it in our archive. You just Google what did we call that episode? Should Canada legalize shrooms? I think is what we called it. I mean, cut to the chase. You can find that episode. But Dana joined us, like you said, after Vancouver police raided his shop. So this person comes up to me randomly on the street the other day and says, "Hey, have you ever had Dana Larson on the show?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure." He was on with us when his shop was raided, and the number one thing after the raid that we talked about was the fact that he mailed shrooms to every MLA in BC for Christmas as a publicity stunt. And I thought it was just like an amazing move. And of course, some of the BC politicians were like, this is preposterous and unacceptable. We have a Canadian, mailing illicit drugs through Canada Post to elected members of the BC legislature. And then there were just other MLAs that didn't say anything, that were strangely quiet about
I had an incredible holiday season.
Whether or not the package had actually arrived.
What happened to you over the holidays? I got Real Talk on my knuckles. I got tattooed. It was an incredible. Thank you so much for your package.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we got a big day coming up, and of course, this is a conversation that we expect is going to resonate across the country. But as you know, as we operate here on Real Talk, we will be conducting this interview through an Alberta lens. And before we break, I do want to talk to you really quickly about how Alberta is winning right now with Play Alberta. You can find it online at playalberta.ca. Not only is Play Alberta the most safe and secure way to bet casino, sports, and lottery online, and not only does all revenue go right back to the province, but Albertans are winning big every single day. 10, 50, even as much as $100,000 won daily on Play Alberta. They've even made millionaires. And best of all, for a limited time only, new players can receive a $1,000 casino bonus. You can download the app anywhere you get your apps, including the App Store on Apple, Google Apps, and others. Check out all the great offers and get started today. A $10,000 winner every hour. Hundreds of popular casino games. Are you Alberta's next winner? Download the app today to find out. Next episode of Real Talk will be one of the biggest in our history. The Prime Minister of Canada in Alberta's capital city for caucus meetings will swing by the Real Talk studio in the historic Mercer Warehouse in downtown Edmonton to take your question, our questions. You can get in touch right now with the show ahead of time to talk at ryanjesperson.com. Don't forget to join us Wednesday, the 10th of September, 8:30 Mountain, 10:30 Eastern, for an exclusive with the Prime Minister. We'll talk to you then.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson, executive producer Josh Dunford, technical producer John Hicks, general manager Katie Cook-Chivers, account coordinator Lawrence Derlego, human resources Lena Shepard, website design Mike Johnston, voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi, Ahmed Ali, Brandy Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harman Candola, Catherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjesperson.com.